This video is brought to you by Artistworks. Artistworks are part of True5 Studios, and they offer direct access to master musicians through their innovative online learning platform. Partnering with iconic musicians, they've crafted decades of industry experience into guided paths of online lessons. Crucially, there's an option to get personal feedback tailored specific to your playing via their unique video exchange. Get direct guidance towards your playing goals. You can use the code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of Artistworks courses. No one has done more videos about Sire guitars than me. Probably more than Sire themselves. Anyway, so this guitar I sent to my music tech teacher from college just to see what he thought of it, and he eventually sent me a message saying this is becoming part of the furniture, I better send it back. So I just also sent the hollow body to John over in Spain. I hope he's digging that, but I thought one in, one out, that's kind of got to be the policy with these Sires, hasn't it? So I was actually really taken aback again by how well this thing played, and so I just wanted to do like a little quick video. You know, these guitars really as good as people are saying they are. I think Tim Pierce suggested that they were kind of changing the game of guitars. I think we're used to the idea of guitars around this sort of price range being pretty good, right? I've also got the Epiphone Lazarus, which is a fair chunk more expensive, but, you know, is still relatively cheap-ish, right? Considering, you know, now an actual Les Paul is like £2,300 from Gibson. And what else have I got? I've got the Tokai with the P90s over there, and I've got a Gibson Les Paul Standard from 2002, and I've also played an R8, and I've played Jake's Murphy Lab R8. Now, the only one that I'd say definitely to me feels like an instrument in a class above is that Murphy Lab, which is obviously an incredibly expensive guitar. But I mean, what that means for me is that Sire have really knocked this out of the park, to be honest, because it honestly, and no one's paying me to say this, and frankly, I'd tell you if I thought otherwise, because I have shown you other faults with Sire guitars, but this one in particular, I could have really probably stuck with this in terms of my Gibson Les Paul search. I think obviously I was chasing the name Gibson on the headstock for a time, and of course it doesn't necessarily look exactly like a Les Paul with this pointy thing and some other bits and pieces going on, but in essence this plays incredibly well, and I think sounds really good as well, and it has some things which a normal Les Paul actually is slightly inferior for in terms of playability. So playability wise, I'd put this up there with any Les Paul that I've tried except for Jake's Murphy Lab, which I think is a really special guitar, so that deserves to be in its own little class. I think the body is slightly slimmer than a normal Les Paul, and we've got this beautiful cutaway here, which you may have seen if you've seen any of my videos before, but this is something like what Sire did when they built the Sire Aura, which looks like, to me, an incredible Les Paul type guitar as well. The neck, I'd say, is, having played some of the 50s style necks, which I tend to have, a little bit slimmer. So maybe this would be closer to the 60s type profile, or maybe a 59 profile, I'm not sure. The ones that I've got, I think, are a little bit more beefy than this, and this, I think, feels slimmer than the hollow body neck as well, but I'm not exactly sure on the measurements on that. I could be way off. Maybe it's just something about the setup that is making it feel that way. It's not too heavy, so one of the things that Tim Pierce kind of mentioned was that sometimes these guitars made in these parts of the world can be a bit heavier. This is £8.06, which is actually really light for a Les Paul. The Gibson Kirk Hammett that I tried was over £10, which is not light for a Les Paul. And it has locking tuners. I think an ebony fretboard on this, because it looks way too dark to be rosewood, which is quite a nice feature really. And the neck with Sires, they all have this rolled fretboard edges thing. And this guitar just feels really, really good to play. I don't know if it sounds to you like anything special or whatever, but I do think it feels really special to play. So again, I'm just in that stage where it's like, well, I've said maybe more than what needs to be said about Sire guitars, but this one's come back to me after a long time away, and I'm still really, really, really impressed with it. So if you're looking for a Les Paul and you're thinking, I want something that actually plays really well, then I think Sire do make them. You may have to experiment and be prepared to send back ones that aren't to your liking. So I've had some people talk about issues that they've had with Sire guitars. Maybe they like their action lower, and sometimes the fretwork has not accommodated them in that. Sometimes it might need a setup. Sometimes there might be little finishing flaws, you know, like the binding, you get some kind of spotting in the binding. But generally this one's actually pretty good. I think if you wanted a flawless guitar, Tokai to me seem to be the only ones that aren't super expensive that I've seen that are consistently pretty much flawless. I'm really impressed with Tokai actually, but where they're kind of making some savings, I'd suggest, is in that kind of, you know, the perfection of the finishing. The Sires don't really have that, but they do play incredibly well, and definitely playing wise I think they rival any of the other Les Pauls that I've tried except for maybe Jake's. Nice kind of chunky frets on there as well, and you don't have the issues with the nibs, and locking tuners, which you wouldn't get unless you went for some sort of upgrade on a normal thing. So does it sound necessarily as good as a Gibson? Maybe not, but equally I think if you stuck in some burst buckers in here, you'd pretty much be getting the full Gibson experience, but on a ergonomically improved guitar, if not aesthetically improved, because I think there are some aspects of it which don't, to me, look quite as cool as an actual Gibson. Other things to check out in this price range, of course, the Epiphone, their latest kind of 59 models, I think, are even long tenon, and I think Epiphone have really started to step up their game in a way that is quite interesting. So since they did the Lazarus model, they also just build these 59 guitars with a long tenon neck. Impressive guitars, I think. Dave, I think you've got one and enjoy it, and have all American kind of pickups and stuff, I believe. So those, I think, are definitely worth a look, and I wouldn't say, you know, that the Sire every time is going to beat one of those. If you get a good Epi, I think those are as good as anything, really, and I feel like my Lazarus beats the Gibson Les Paul Standard from 2002 in some ways, to be honest with you. So don't be too snobby about Epiphone either. Just try and play a few of these if you can find them. But I was just really surprised again, just think, well, that just makes me want to play guitar. So you might see more of this around, because I do think maybe this is my favourite of all the Sire guitars that I've played, to be honest with you. But now that I've started to understand Les Paul's a bit more. I think this has all of the things that you'd want from a Les Paul and a little bit more, though it's missing the flame top in it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Have you tried a side? Did you get on with it? Do you think people are exaggerating them? As I say, I bought this one with my own money. I bought a bunch of others. Sire did message me in May, but I forgot to reply. Sorry. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that, if you're interested at all. Other options. Oh, actually, I've got a Maybach that I'm going to hopefully bring back tonight. So that'll be an interesting thing to compare. So I genuinely would put these up there in terms of playability with the Gibsons that I've tried and stuff. So I don't know whether that speaks to anything other than me being non-discerning. Cheers for stopping by. Oh, I was using an Alan Hinds type preset that I put together for Helix Native. If you wanted to check that out, feel free. I don't know whether this one might be a good candidate for dropping in those Peter Green pickups. If I'm liking the way it plays and I like the guitar for what it is, then maybe, you know, swapping in and out pickups might be quite a cool thing to try with this guitar. What do you reckon?